Hi, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of Banfield and NewsNation's continuing coverage of the manhunt for the killer of right-wing activist Charlie Kirk. We're coming up on 33 hours now since Charlie Kirk was gunned down at that speaking event at a Utah campus, and it is 1 hour since investigators from all levels of government, all the way from local cops to the very top of America's police command, faced reporters and the public and gave us the latest, which I've got to be honest, wasn't much. As you may have seen live on NewsNation, though, the authorities did release in Utah new video of the gunman making his escape from the rooftop of a Utah Valley University building. But they also released enhanced versions of much closer images of the shooter in hopes that someone out there recognizes this guy, recognizes this thin, young man all dressed in black. The new video is really quite astonishing. It captures the assassin lowering himself down from the edge of the roof on one side of an open-air plaza. And in the process, right there, he leaves behind a valuable palm print. And when he falls to the bottom there, he leaves an impression, a shoe impression in the grass. This is manna from heaven when it comes to investigations. And then TMZ acquired this video of the person of interest walking through a nearby neighborhood. What's fascinating is this is minutes before the shooting. So when you see that he appears to be hobbling or limping, look at that. Makes me think this is after and that he might have sprained his ankle when he fell from the building, right? But no, this is before the shooting. So it is entirely possible that he's got that long arm, that murder weapon, the rifle, in one leg of his pants. The left leg, which you can see seems to be heavier, doesn't bend. Hard to tell because that rifle does actually break down. Could have been in the backpack as well. Get you some details now to the pictures, the still pictures that they released. They were taken in a staircase in the university, and you can see the suspect wearing a shirt with American flag design on it. He's also wearing a hat with a triangle, and he's got a very distinctive set of Converse sneakers. Some say black jeans, but it looks like they're just fairly dark denim to me, maybe even blue in the shadows. But again, that backpack is really unique. Take a close look at it. Do you know anybody who's got a backpack like that, a shirt like that, a hat like that, Converse like that, maybe even a body type or a gait, the way he walks? Does anything ring a bell? The authorities say call the FBI, call your local police, call any authorities if you know anything about this guy. In one of the photos, you can see an outline of what appears to be his cell phone in his right front pocket. To me, that says it could be a trove for the investigators. Was it turned on? Did it turn off, like Kohberger, who turned his phone off on the way to his murders? It'll be interesting to see if this and how this might figure into the investigation to find this guy. In some nearby woods where the shooter is believed to have fled, the investigators found a Mauser bolt-action .30-06 caliber rifle, and it had a long-distance scope on it. We're told 4 cartridges were still inside, 3 unspent in the magazine, a spent round in the chamber. And early reports today suggested that some or all of them were inscribed with, quote, transgender or anti-fascist ideology. But later on, numerous outlets cited official sources in saying the ammo is still being analyzed and that initial description may not, in fact, be accurate. And let's just pause right here, everybody. In the last 33 hours, how many things did you see on your feed yesterday that turned out to be absolute garbage? Keep that in mind as you continue to collect information in this crime. This isn't easy, and social media sometimes helps and sometimes makes it worse. It certainly is driving a wedge ideologically into a lot of people, especially with the early crap that people were putting out there that we now know to be whole cloth crap. Authorities say they have received more than 7,000 tips and leads so far, and every time I go in and try to update that number, it grows by the hundreds. Many of these tips, presumably, are from the approximately 3,000 people who came to hear Charlie Kirk speak, maybe even came to ask him a question or challenge him, because that's what we do. We debate with words. We disagree with words, not bullets. And even more tips are likely to come in, since the FBI is now offering a reward of up to $100,000 for information leading to that assassin. I want to go straight to NewsNation senior national correspondent Brian Enton, who is on the ground in Utah. So, Brian, the news conference was, I have to say, somewhat unsatisfying, except for that video showing how the shooter ran across the rooftop, dropped a substantial distance, and was holding that heavy backpack, if it had the gun in it, when he landed. Maybe he's injured. Maybe he's seeking some kind of help, or maybe he's hunkering down. But what's the very latest you're hearing?
Yeah, I don't think he's injured, Ashleigh. I mean, when you watch this video play again, you see him running, so he's clearly not injured up on top of the roof. He starts running, then watch this, he drops down, and it only plays for a second, so you're gonna have to watch really quickly. He's gonna drop down, kind of puts his foot on a ledge, goes down, and then look, you see him run for a second, stops for a second, and then runs. I don't see a limp or an injury there, which I go back to that video from TMZ that's out where you see him in the neighborhood and he's got this very distinct limp. And all of the people who I've talked to, former FBI agents, believe that he may have had the rifle hidden under his shirt and partly in his pants in that other TMZ video. And that's the reason that there is such a distinct limp there, Ashleigh. Yeah, here's the video. Look at this. You're going to see when he comes by.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? The way he's limping, like it looks so much like he could have a long arm.
Look at that.
And I made a mistake before saying it was his left leg. I think it's his right leg, where he may have the long arm stashed in those jeans.
Yeah, I think it is the left leg. And this is him walking to the shooting. So, I mean, compare that to the way he ran on the roof in that newly released video by the FBI. You saw him run, he zips across the roof, and then he drops down and he zips across the field for a second, you see. How does that compute with the limping through the neighborhood on the way there? I think he was hiding the gun.
Maybe. And I'm going to ask our control room, because we keep cutting it right as soon as he runs out of frame there. I want to see him run the rest of the way. Can we please roll the video where he runs after he's dropped from the building? If it's hard, I mean, we're scrambling to get this all cut and get it out as soon as we can. But if we can get it, let's try to get it. Brian, when they showed where he ran across the grass to cross a road. It was a busy road, so loads of people passed him as he was crossing the street into the wooded area and into the neighborhood where, you know, maybe this is one of the neighborhoods where he had come from and eventually ended up afterwards. But tell me about the police presence in the surrounding neighborhood and what all the people there are saying.
Yeah, so when you're here, you realize what a small area it is. Where he dropped down off the roof to where he ran and dropped the gun is maybe 150 yards. There's a little wooded area where he left the rifle, and then he ran into a neighborhood which is just right behind that. So it's all close together. You mentioned the busy road. There's a perimeter road that goes all the way around the university that he had to cross to then go into that neighborhood. And there were police out there. We saw pictures of the flyers that they left on people's doors trying to get information. They obviously got some Ring camera footage. That's where TMZ got that footage. But what's interesting tonight out here, and I'm curious what you think about this, is besides the police presence when Kash Patel, the FBI director, showed up and they kind of closed everything off, it doesn't have that manhunt vibe out here. There's been not one helicopter since I got here yesterday. There's not like we saw a couple of the Humvees going around earlier, but you don't see them passing around. They're not in the SWAT gear anymore. The cops don't have their rifles out, which makes me wonder if there's some kind of information that this guy is long gone at this point.
Or where are the dogs? Have you seen any canine units anywhere? They've got material from this guy. They've got a gun. They've got a scent. Are there canines that have been trying to track the scent and find out where he ended up going?
No, I haven't seen any canines. I haven't seen like really any searches happening where I am. Granted, I'm sure they were happening in that neighborhood and near that wooded area. But I go back, you brought up Coburger earlier with Leland. There was so much that we were questioning why the police weren't doing things, and then we found out later they were doing so much behind the scenes. I'm assuming this is one of those situations. There's a lot we don't know. They were so measured. They were all supposed to speak at the press conference, Ashleigh. We got the note ahead of time with who would be there and who would be speaking, including FBI Director Kash Patel. And then it was delayed 15, 20 minutes. And then the governor comes out and almost immediately says not taking any questions and just gives a very measured, brief statement. I wonder if they learned something very soon before that press conference started.
Well, I'm not going to lie. It's been a hot mess since yesterday, with the FBI director saying we got him twice and then having to recant. And then the FBI director is listed as one of the speakers. He's at the top of the list. I've got Kash Patel, Robert Bowles, the FBI special agent in charge, the Utah governor, Spencer Cox, Bo Mason, the commissioner of the Utah Department of Public Safety. And they didn't speak. Only the governor spoke. And after hours and hours of delays in which we were told something big is happening. Those are my words. But, we were told things are really progressing. This does not sound like things were progressing. In fact, Brian, I was surprised when the first things out of the governor's mouth were, we're still looking for this guy. But you're right. Something seemed weird about that press conference. What's the press corps saying at this point?
I mean, we've been waiting all day. There was a press conference that was supposed to be scheduled this afternoon, and then they came around to all of our little press tents and said, hey, we're actually not doing the press conference. We'll keep you posted. It's delayed. Things are sort of moving and shaking. So, I thought maybe they knew who the person was. Maybe they still do know who the person is, and they're just not telling us. So we've all kind of been on pins and needles all day, waiting to find out when this press conference was going to be rescheduled for. Then the FBI director showed up here, and then there was this short press conference. So it seems like there's got to be things that they're not telling us that they know behind the scenes, because they're such good photos. I mean, if you knew this guy and you saw these photos, you would know that it's the person that you know. I mean, they're clear. Not this one in particular, not the TMZ video, but the photos that they've released from inside the school.
Okay, so now, Brian, what we're looking at is running there at the far right side of your screen, and he stops to cross that street. They pan the camera over. The traffic actually ends up being too much for him, so he has to stop before he crosses that busy street. But he has made a hell of a distance from the shooting zone to the neighborhoods to the right of that busy street is where he ended up disappearing. But that's the video. Can we play it one more time so we can just see him running across that grass? Because it's important to see how it was he ran. I mean, if I had dropped that distance, especially carrying the backpack, he dropped with the backpack instead of dropping the backpack first, which says to me, perhaps the gun was in that backpack, maybe disassembled, but he didn't want to drop it for fear it might go off and alert where he was. So he hangs with one arm, backpack in other arm, and drops with backpack, and then seems to stumble a little bit before now running off. And this is what Brian was saying. You have to zero in there and watch him. Oh, no, we're rolling the same thing again. Okay, do we have the second video of him running? Can we just roll that one instead, please? So we can see him running off from the drop position. And that's the one that's so key. Everyone wants to know, how did he survive that fall without any kind of, injury? Seems like it would be tricky to run across that grass. And there, now, hopefully this is it. Is this the one? I think this is it. Let's watch together. Sorry, folks, it's raw television because we just got it from the authorities in Utah. There he is running. And then they zoom out so they can get him going across the grass. Seems like he's making pretty damn good time, especially with the speed of that car. And then he makes it to that busy street. You're right, Brian. Does not look like he's limping. At least I can't tell. Doesn't look like he's struggling. Not at all. Looks like he made it pretty well.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking.
And then got across the
I'm
street.
watching this.
All right,
thinking
I want to
what's
bring
going
in.
on at the same
yeah, go ahead.
time.
Yeah, go ahead.
No,
Brian.
I was just saying, watching this, I was envisioning what was going on at the same time with Charlie Kirk, and this time that he's running away and crossing the street is probably the time that they're carrying Charlie to the waiting SUV, and it's so tragic. It happened so fast.
It's very tragic, and all the attention, of course, is on the other side of that building, right? No one's got attention on this side of the building. People here might not even have known what happened. These people walking may not have known anything. You hear a crack, you don't know what it is. Maybe they heard screaming, maybe they didn't, but he may not have drawn any attention by running across that grass. Or maybe he did. Brian, stand by, and if you learn anything more in this hour, just knock on the door. You're on right away. Brian's going to do more digging and some more legwork. In the meantime, I want to bring in John Muffler. He's a retired U.S. Marshal and principal of Quietus Global Security. John, you know, I had a million questions for you, and then this news conference hit, so I'm going to tailor it as I go. What does this new video say to you? Do you see what Brian and I see? Do you see a guy who was limping on his way there and seemed absolutely fine after dropping a full, you know, extended story off that building?
No, he's healthy. You know, I think the video prior to in the neighborhood shows that he's hiding the long gun down his pant leg. He's fully able-bodied here, as we see in the video, able to jump off and run. So I will say this, and I mentioned this earlier, but, you know, this was a planned event. And so this person was very likely on that street the day before or days before, planning out his route of going in and his exit. So I would imagine in these video cameras in these neighborhoods that there are other videos of him walking without that limp because he didn't have the gun down his pants as he was planning it. So there's going to be other videos out there. Like you, the press conference left much to be desired, which tells me that they have additional information that they don't want to release. I mean, we waited all day. Like you, I'm a consumer of the information. You know, it just tells me that they have a lot more information that they're not giving up.
That's what I thought, John. That's what I thought. They want this guy to be comfortable. They want him to feel like he pulled it off. And like Luigi Mangione, go get yourself some hash browns at McDonald's, fully on camera and in front of Pennsylvanians who said, I think it's that guy from the news. Okay, the other question I have for you is, that is such a critical aspect. Nobody does something like this without checking it all out beforehand. And so the videos from days prior are going to be critical. They will not be as busy, right? That area will not be as busy in the days beforehand. They will have surveillance from the days beforehand. But I also think this guy's not so stupid that he wouldn't cover up better in the days beforehand, no?
No, I'm not going to give him that much credit. It's a great point you bring up. But I think we saw this with the United Healthcare CEO assassination and the images of Mangione prior to. Same thing. He was there days in advance. This event was planned well in advance, so it gave the assassin the opportunity, just like in New York, to be there in advance to plan the attack they want to carry out. So. You know, he had ample opportunity to figure that stuff out. I would say in a lot of those other images, like we saw with United Healthcare, there'll probably be images of him on campus without his sunglasses and without his hat on that shows who he actually is. So those are the images I'm kind of waiting to see, you know?
I'm shocked he didn't wear a mask, because anybody wearing a mask these days is given a pass, and I am astounded that he didn't wear a mask like Mangione allegedly did. Quick question for you. In one of those pictures, we saw the phone in the front right-hand pocket of those jeans. It was big. It was a big phone. Look at that. That's got to be a real boon for investigators, whether the phone is turned on or turned off. If he's got it, he had to have turned it on or turned it off at some point. Tell me what that says for a guy like you from the U.S. Marshals.
Yeah, so we'd be able to find out, again, it takes time, as you know, to get a warrant and get the data dump from all the phone networks in that area. But we can find that. We can look through that. And we have the technology now. The FBI has the same technology to go through that, scan through it fast, and see what numbers are being called, what numbers exist, pinging off those towers. And then we can look into the common denominators, right? You have cell phone pinging, you have those locations. You have, certain anomalies, one-offs that keep popping up, and that can pinpoint to a particular phone, to a particular user. So that takes a couple days to get that information. But certainly, we as investigators would be able to get in and find that specific phone and that specific number and who it belongs to.
Especially if he did it multiple times before to suss it out and to plan. His phone may have gone and done it, just like Kohberger. Kohberger scouted his target's location and didn't turn off his phone. And then the night of, he stupidly walked out, got in his car, started driving, and turned off his phone. Let's hope that this guy did the same thing and did the same patterns, that's the kind of thing that can lead to tracking him. John Muffler, always good to have you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. All right.
I hope we meet next time and we're talking about the suspect who now we have to prosecute as opposed to still find. John Muffler always doing a great job for us, formerly with the U.S. Marshals. Okay, still to come tonight, folks. What is often the single biggest piece of evidence in any murder? It is the weapon. The rifle that's believed to have killed Charlie Kirk is now telling its secrets to the best forensics team in the world. It may even tell who fired the fatal shot. After the break, I'm going to break down the ballistics with the preeminent gun expert in Hollywood and far beyond. He knows a thing or two about the gun and how it can lead right back to the killer. It's next. While we still don't know who fired the single shot that killed Charlie Kirk, we know a lot about the gun that the shooter is believed to have used. As we mentioned at the top of the show, investigators found a, quote, high-powered bolt-action rifle in a wooded area near the Utah Valley University campus. Specifically, it was a Mauser 30-06, similar to rifles used by the German army in World War II and later adopted by hunters all around the world. This Mauser was fitted with a long-range scope, and I keep my next guest on speed dial for stories like this. Steve Wolf is a firearms expert and an engineer and an expert witness. Welcome back to the program, Steve. I've been dying to ask you all day. Half of the experts on the air are saying that this rifle doesn't break down. The other half of the experts are saying this rifle does break down. And then we see this guy limping like he's got a long arm stuffed down his pants. What's your take on what you know so far?
There are aftermarket accessories that would allow you to break this gun down. He selected a bolt action because this is typically the choice for a long-range sniper. A bolt action looks like this. It has very few moving pieces. When you put the bolt forward and engage around, it locks in place. And because nothing happens after you pull the trigger except the click, the amount of gas pressure in the barrel remains consistent, and that's why this type of gun is preferred for long-range shots.
And it doesn't expel the cartridge either, which I learned. So he took that cartridge with him, and it was found inside the gun, according to some reports, along with some others in a magazine. How quickly, if it is broken down, because it doesn't look like he's jumping with a long rifle tucked in his leg. It looks like it's got to be in that backpack. So how quickly could he break it down if he needed to break it down?
A second or two.
What?
Literally just push a button and wrap it around, push another button and wrap it back. They're designed to be able to be put into full-length mode or compact mode extremely quickly.
Well, that would make perfect sense. Given what we've now seen, Steve, and I think a lot of that video is brand new since we called you earlier today. Now we're seeing him running to the edge of the building, jumping off that building. He's holding onto the backpack as he's jumping and landing with the backpack. Most of us would drop whatever heavy thing we have so that it makes the landing less painful. But he jumps with that backpack. Does that make you think that he did break the rifle down and that he did put it in the backpack?
Not necessarily. With all the things going on in his mind, he's probably not thinking about what's the best way to land here. He's thinking about getting away. There's no danger of the gun going off if he were to have dropped it, because what's in the chamber is still the expended cartridge, the empty brass. So he could smash that gun as hard as he wants. It's not going to go off again.
But what do you make of him dropping off? I mean, he would not have put that gun in his pants and done this jump, but I don't see a gun in his hands.
Yeah, no, it looks like it's in the bag that he's carrying.
Yeah, I think you're right. He had to have. And just to be clear, it's a long gun. He would have had to break it down, correct? It wouldn't have fit in a backpack that size put together.
Yeah, that's correct. It's hard to see if that's really the same backpack that we saw in the shots. To me, it looks more like a duffel bag of 36 to 40 inches. So he could have had the uncompacted weapon in there as well.
Yeah, he certainly didn't leave anything behind at the scene of the shooting because
no.
At least that's the authorities have not said it.
That's right. If he'd had an AR-style weapon when he pressed the trigger, clear that. When he pressed the trigger, the gun would have gone off, and then the bolt would have gone back, and spent brass would have gone out, and he probably didn't want to leave brass at the scene, which doesn't make too much sense why he still left the gun so close to the scene where it could easily be and was recovered.
Okay, next question. It's an important one for investigators. That is, how many people roughly have this gun? How hard will it be for investigators to narrow down this particular gun to the person who purchased it or owned it eventually?
It depends entirely on the individual gun. While thousands of people do own that gun, whether it was purchased, on a 4473 form in a store where there's a record they can get it, whether it was purchased from a friend, whether it was given to him as a gift. So there may or may not be a record of ownership on the gun. So really no way to know on that.
But in
But
this
I
particular
understand
area
they-
in Utah, hunting is big, right? Like there's got to be, and this is a big, you tell me, but I think this is a big gun among hunters. It would be tricky, especially in this part of Utah, to narrow this gun down. There's a lot of them out there, right?
Yeah, there certainly are. And the marksmanship, wasn't particularly great. With a large caliber rifle, you can still create a lethal wound from hits in many parts of the bodies. But if you look up anything about sniper, you'll see, snipers work either headshots, which is the less preferred because heads are small, or a central torso shot. But to hit a neck versus a heart, he would be off 8 inches on that, or about the same if he was doing a headshot, he'd be off another 9 or 10 inches. So the marksmanship wasn't great. The idea that he would have been a trained, skilled military marksman, I don't think that carries much weight either.
But what about a civilian?
Civilian, absolutely. His shooting was characteristic with it. I've known 12-year-olds who could have made a more accurate shot than that at that distance. But if this is not what he does for a living and he's under pressure and there's 220 volts of adrenaline running through his body, his marksmanship might not be in top form. But as I said,
Steve, you know what? I got to go, but I got to ask you this question. I only have about 10 seconds left. Would someone like this, planning this kind of a kill, would they practice? Would he have gone to gun ranges in the area multiple times in advance of this, upon hearing the announcement that Charlie Kirk was going to be there? Would that be a great investigative tack to take?
There's no way to know whether he's from the area. He certainly would have gone to a range and practiced. He would have sighted in the rifle properly, but he could have done that in wherever his hometown might happen to be.
That's a good point. Steve, it's always great when you join me. I always learn something new. Thank you so much for this. I hope we speak next when we're talking about evidence and prosecution, not searching and manhunting. Thank you for this.
Thank you so much, Ashleigh.
Steve Wolf joining us live, and he will be back again. We have to take another quick break, but when we come back, the other pieces of this puzzle, the screen grabs, the videos, the shoe imprint, the palm imprint, and the forearm impression left by a killer who disappeared fast. What does it all mean to a highly trained eye? That's next.
This man did nothing more than to have conversations. This man did nothing more than to have conversations with people in the most respectful way that you could possibly do. In the most respectful way.
As Banfield viewers well know, evidence and clues that police gather early in an investigation are not always revealed to you and me, the public, right away. But here's what police and the feds investigating the killing of Charlie Kirk have told us that they've collected so far as the manhunt is active tonight. A person of interest in several videos, officials only releasing a couple of screenshots here and there, FBI saying the shooter is college age. They showed him jumping from the roof, but you can't see him up close. The person's clothes, shirt, hat, sneakers, all obvious in these pictures. Videos taken from the crowd, some showing Kirk being shot. Others show the rooftops, and you can see a figure appearing to be lying in wait in some of those pictures, and later a figure appearing to run away on the rooftop. They found a shoe print, a palm print, a forearm print on that roof. The FBI also has a rifle found in the woods nearby. Plus, and this is great, about 3,000 people you can consider witnesses to this crime. Although, true, most of them wisely ducked, ran for cover, or hit the decks when the shot rang out. I want to bring in Laura Ballman, former CIA operations officer, for her take on all of this. Laura, real quickly, I just went over such a quick list, we couldn't even show the pictures to correspond in time. But just off the top, they've got video, they've got the rifle, they've got prints, they've got witnesses. What's the priority? Where are they putting all of their resources, or at least the most of their resources right now?
Looking at the weapon, running the prints, and interviewing people are the traditional routes. In today's world, they'll also be exploiting any electronic signature he might have left on the internet. Earlier, you showed the telephone. They'll be looking for where that may have last pinged, all of those sorts of details. Even it's something that commentators haven't mentioned yet, even that image on his sweatshirt, there will be an analyst somewhere who is digging into who manufactured that, where it could be purchased. I mean, every single detail will be scrutinized.
You know, I'm glad you said that, because that's one of the first things I thought. The T-shirt. Sure, it's a popular T-shirt. Thousands of them are sold all around the U.S., but how many of them were sold maybe in this vicinity? I don't know if this guy is from this area, but let's just say how many are sold in this vicinity? How many went to a household where there's a young guy this age? You can really zero it down to maybe a few hundred in this area, and then it's just good old-fashioned gumshoe, right? You just start knocking on these doors and finding out who lives there. I can't help but say, by the way, every time I see this, how much this reminds me of Luigi Mangione, the pictures, especially when he's looking away.
Yeah, and he walks with that same sort of braggadocio, and I guess we could say, when we think about how Mangione just walked through Manhattan as though he didn't have a care in the world, and this young man also moved around as though he didn't have a care in the world. One thing we should also consider when thinking about the investigation is we live in the era of big data. So just like you and I use ChatGPT to ask the history of something, and 3 minutes later, the algorithm spits out what it, to our minds, is a rapid response of bringing all this information together. They're also doing that in law enforcement. So yes, there's the old-fashioned gumshoe, and every investigation requires that. But think about if you take the information we have about the weapons, the information that law enforcement has about the palm prints, the Converse shoes, the T-shirt, the phone pings, and takes all that data and puts it through artificial intelligence, that's going to bear some interesting results.
I never even thought. I hadn't added that to my toolkit of all the things I ask about, but you're right. Artificial intelligence, ask AI. How many people bought all of these things, have all of these things, do all of these things? And who knows? If you have a big signature on the internet, maybe something will pop up. Laura Ballman, thank you so much for that. I'm so glad when I learn something new. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ashleigh.
Coming up next, can a killer actually hide in the age of cameras on every corner and in everyone's hand? Amid the active manhunt right now for Charlie Kirk's killer, how big a part is video going to play in tracking him, maybe even catching him? Just ask Luigi Mangione and Bryan Kohberger. Tonight, the video puzzle pieces that may lead investigators right to this guy. That's next. If you are charged with a crime, it is easier than ever for authorities to prove you did it, if you did it. And if you didn't, it's easier than ever to prove you were somewhere else. And how is that? Video cameras. They captured Bryan Kohberger's white Hyundai Elantra circling the murder scene in Moscow, Idaho, and speeding off afterwards. They caught Luigi Mangione, or a gunman who's alleged to be Luigi, in the act of killing Brian Thompson and then getting away on a bike and stopping at McDonald's for hash browns. And then it caught him checking into a hostel and smiling at the pretty girl behind the counter. And if you spend any time outside your own home today, cameras probably caught you too. But now comes a frightening twist. Any image of any kind can now be faked to the point where most of us really can't believe our own feeds when we see a bombshell. That's where my next guest comes in. Jake Green is my go-to digital forensics expert, and he's been all over the images that we're getting from the Charlie Kirk murder in Utah. Okay, Jake, thank you for being here. First question is this. I nearly went crazy yesterday with the amount of garbage from the digital cesspool that was the internet and was the social media feeds yesterday. So just in the last 30 hours, just give me your read on how bad it was with those who were either trying to mess around or make a point by putting out misinformation and bad photos.
I think really in the age that we live in, folks are looking for clicks. My brother sent me a screenshot today of somebody who had posted on Facebook of, it was absolutely an AI generated image of that man walking up the stairs. So there's so much that we can't believe.
Oh.
And it's just amazing. So, but when we see videos produced by the FBI and put out for the publics to view, we know we can depend on those.
Yeah, so let me ask you about that, since you have this background in forensics. And forensics, as everybody knows, is the art of solving, right? When it comes to what the police are doing now, with all of the video that they are amassing, where do they start? These have to be real-time eyeballs, don't they?
That's right. So the very first thing that came out, when we think about the initial crime scene of where Charlie was shot, 3,000 people roughly in that courtyard, that's a giant populace compared to the surrounding neighborhoods and areas. And then when the video was released today by the FBI showing the shooter jumping off the roof, running through the sidewalks towards the parking lot, towards a wooded area, possibly a neighborhood, that shooter moving away is going to limit the area that law enforcement needs to start looking and to see if we can identify any other location data from a cell tower. We saw the Wise home video from the same suspect walking through the neighborhood. So the further he walks away and gives us a direction of travel from this crime scene, the more likely law enforcement is going to be able to develop some excellent leads. In the video that's playing right now, where it stops, it's pretty indicative that FBI decided to stop it right there. Because that's, if you look to the right across that street, there's a wooded area that's pretty dense.
Yeah. Listen, I don't have a whole lot of time, but I want to ask you this. See all those cars in that parking lot? See all those cars whizzing by him? Teslas now have cameras everywhere, and I'm wondering if that's going to end up potentially being a boon to investigators.
It absolutely will. So if you actually look and count the cars, there are a few Teslas in that parking lot. So we've seen with the Trump casino fire with the Tesla Cybertruck burning, Tesla very quickly helped the FBI dig into those videos that were available. So I wouldn't be surprised if we're doing the same here. However, the person going through this courtyard here, they don't really get close enough to one of those vehicles to trigger a sentry mode to actually record. However, when he's going through a neighborhood, those cameras work based on motion most of the time. So we will begin to see more videos being released of the suspect either coming from the scene as he's walking away here or actually going to the school.
Yeah. And maybe, just maybe, one Tesla whizzed by him, either on that street or another street. Hey, Jake Green, I got to have you back. Thank you for this tonight. Really appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. Thanks, Ashleigh.
On this 24th anniversary of 9/11, our nation seems as divided as it's ever been. And yet, the day after 9/11, 2001, we seemed closer than ever before. Can we somehow rekindle that? Coming up next, some stats that just might help bring down the heat. Pretty much the only thing we know for sure about the killing of the young conservative firebrand Charlie Kirk is that we don't know much for sure. But we do know history. Assassinations and politically motivated attacks are a tragic fact of life, and not just modern life, and not just America. And keeping score by parties and labels is not just beside the point, it rarely tells the whole story, and sometimes not even the true story. And on the very day that we commemorate 9/11, 24 years, we need to be better than us versus them. Any guesses what the JFK assassination and Bobby Kennedy's assassination and Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination all have in common with the killing of the Speaker of the Minnesota House just this summer? What the shooting of Ronald Reagan has in common with the shooting of Gabby Giffords and Congressman Steve Scalise, and for that matter, President Trump? Not political parties, and not even political motives. Some of the attackers were killed, so we don't even know their motives. Some purported motives turned out to be wrong. And some of the shooters were just nuts. Nuts with guns. What all of those atrocities have in common is all of the shooters were caught. And I'm well aware that not everybody accepts that Lee Harvey Oswald killed JFK or that he acted alone, so no need to write me. But my point is, investigators did what investigators do. Politics be damned. And cases were closed. And so will the Charlie Kirk case be too. Whatever the guilty party is, whatever his motive is. That's it for tonight, everyone. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you tomorrow at our normal time, 10 p.m. Eastern.